My subject today is democratization of warfare and the necessary corollary that there should be a democratization of military knowledge and military studies in our society. Now, some of these words are big words and they have to get some meaning as I proceed. Therefore, I will make my points clear as I proceed. That is, giving meaning to what I said. Democratization of warfare has to be followed with the democratization of military studies and military knowledge. Now, what is this all about? The background is something like this. On June the 1st, that is 3 or 4 days ago, over 100 Ukrainian drones took off from lorries thousands of kilometers away from the front lines of battle. And they all were towards various locations, various airfields, and they demolished 20 to 40 aircraft of the Russian side, rendering really the military capability of Russia more than a little affected for the next 1 or 2 months, by which time they may get many things repaired and get those things back into service. The economics of it is more interesting because while technology is shifting the nature of war, it also shifts the business of war. War is, after all, a business too, because the economics of war has always to be thought of by governments. It is not that they have a lot of money. All of them are constrained by finances. The USA is running a $1 trillion deficit. We too are running deficits all over the world. Now, let me get back to this point that the disproportionate lethal effect of this new technology is something like this. A $600 drone can knock out $100 million worth warplane. That is a 1:170,000 proportion. The squeeze is little, the juice is lots. This disproportion stares you in the face. Now, this has been a long time coming, and over these 2 or 3 years where the Russian-Ukraine war has been going on, and the iconic weapon has been the drone for the Ukrainian side, defense analysts have been emphasizing and pointing out that Ukraine has been a testing ground for the shift in warfare. Shift in warfare. Technology is shifting the nature of war. Cheap drones and missiles, after all, took out lines and lines of tanks, Russian tanks, moving into Ukraine. These cheap drones have also been used by non-state actors like the Houthi rebels to destroy multiple ships and force the US to spend more than $1 billion. And now they have come to an understanding that their ships, US ships, will not be attacked. Never mind that Houthi rebels continue to attack Israeli ships. Hackers can now figure out how to jam navigation systems. Throw in the growing power of artificial intelligence, and you have a situation now in which the next military innovation probably won't come from the Pentagon or from its R&D, but from smart people in their garages who are tech savvy. Scale is a different matter. These people who work in the garages can't have scale. That has to be by companies. But that is the nature of the shift. Massiveness versus the tech savvy. Massiveness is not really becoming obsolete, though that is the refrain of many analysts. But tech savvy technology has to be another layer in this whole toolkit. Now, democratization of warfare, which in simple words means that the massive legacy items, they like the F-35s and S-400 and the armor, big things. Well, Trump's Golden Dome costing $165 billion, that may not deliver the goods. There is a tech-driven deflation and decentralization, and this means that a militarily not very strong power, not even known, can really make these superpowers and military powers look weak. Therefore, no longer is military warfare the monopoly, the defining power of huge super military powers. The small can also, show by their tech-savvy performance that they can really win a battle, not the war. So, success in future warfare may be measured less by huge budgets or massive equipment and massive hardware, but who is more tech savvy. This is the background in which we have to see the dramatic raid of Ukraine drones on Russia's airfields. About 1,000 kilometers away from the front line. These are matters of great significance. That is a stunning reminder that things have changed in warfare, that the strategies of the old do not count for a good deal now. And while all this was happening, while this raid, which will be ranked among the great raiding parties of military history, there was not even a ripple in India. None of the papers reported it in great detail, nor ever looked at this significance of this event. And that is why I thought I would do this video, to make the point that emerging technologies are changing the character of warfare more profoundly than at any time in human history. Therefore, while we were all silent here, and remember, we are one of the greatest procurers of military equipment. Our budget, India's defense budget, is 6 lakh crores. That is 6.8 trillion rupees. We have a 1.4 million strong army, and yet with all this, and we are the third largest economy in the world, and we don't at all worry and don't think at all about one of the greatest events in military history. This seems to be a bit odd, and that is because for a long time, very long time really, defense has been considered the preserve, the exclusive preserve of the armed forces. It has worked out fine, I suppose, until now, but no longer. The British government came out very quickly, very quick off the block, with their own paper assessment, the British government's assessment of this event. And the points that they made are one, of course, obviously the battlefield now stretches deep behind the front line, overturning the assumptions of the past, and that there should be flexible thinking to deal with the breakneck innovations that are transforming warfare. The most important point made in the June 2nd paper of the British Defense Review, remember that the Ukrainian raid happened on June 1st, and the British government British Defense Department was quick off the blocks with their review, very serious review. They recommended what is called the whole of society approach, in which industry, academia, education and ordinary people are all prepared for the crisis and all are involved in the making of defense thinking. The paper, the review, British Defence Review, emphasized that the way of thinking about military technology needs to be supple. Since these emerging technologies are already changing the character of warfare, they recommended that 10% of the annual defense budget should be earmarked for novel technologies. And this is important. The last recommendation was the army will have crude platforms, only 20% of the toolkit. 40% will go to uncrewed platforms. So, this is how governments need to think. And while, as I said earlier, it is amazing that with India's huge, well-informed university graduates and tech people, young people all over the world, all over India, say India's own Silicon Valley, whether it's Bangalore or Pune, they should all be involved, and should not be that defense or military studies or military knowledge is some kind of sacred ground where ordinary mortals fear to tread. It should be now open. That is the way the Defence Review of Britain has pointed out. It will be interesting to know that in Ukraine, warfare is crowdsourced. Engineers, hobbyists, hackers all contribute to the ultimate military outcomes. Because this is the way now clear that the concept of warfare has changed. In the US, for example, military studies are part of university programs, and tech companies are actively involved in shaping even military doctrine. So in India, the time has come to introduce military and strategic studies in our universities, in our colleges. This time has come to fund independent think tanks that analyze military technology and doctrines. The time has come to create civil military dialogue platforms. The time has come for citizens to be regularly, actively engaged in military dialogue. The time has come to incentivize tech companies and startups to innovate in dual use. So, this big paradigm shift in the way we involve ourselves in military studies and military knowledge is called for from what we see is happening and what is emphasized by the very authoritative paper, the British Defence Review of June 2nd.